You've been working on amazing stuff. So you've seen all the protests that are happening. You just tried to pass the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, but it was stopped by one person, Rand Paul, who seemed to suggest that it was too broad, bill, because it wasn't exactly sure about what it was a bill for. That's kind of the feel that I got from here. He said, and also murdering someone because of their race is already a hate crime, and yet we see it over and over and over. So I don't understand what his point is. Can you help me understand what he's talking about?
Well, no, I can't. And in fact, it was the very same point that you raised that I raised on the Senate floor, which is I don't know what you're talking about, Rand Paul. And in fact, it was insulting. You know, there are only 3 black members of the United States Senate. Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey, Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina, who is a Republican, Cory Booker's a Democrat, and me. And I'm actually only the 2nd black woman ever elected to the United States Senate in its history. And it has been over 100 years that people have been trying to pass in the United States Senate, in the United States Congress, an anti-lynching bill. And you probably saw, I felt very strongly about what Rand Paul was doing, which is one man holding up what would be a historic bill recognizing one of the great sins of America. And it was on the day of George Floyd's funeral, which just added insult to injury and frankly made it so painful that on that day, that's what was happening. But you know what? But here's the cure. Today we announced together, I announced with other members of the Congressional Black Caucus and the leaders of the House, including not only Nancy Pelosi, but Chuck Schumer and so many others, that we are going to actually present what is one of the most comprehensive bills around what we need to do around policing in America, and the anti-lynching bill will be a part of that package. And so I do believe that we have an opportunity to pass it.
Senator Harris, all 4 former officers involved in George Floyd's death have now been arrested and charged. Derek Chauvin, the officer who held Mr. Floyd's, who held his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck for almost 9 minutes, will be making his first court appearance today, now that his charges have thankfully been upgraded to second-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. But from 1999 to 2006, in that very same county, cops involved in more than 24 officer-involved fatalities were not even criminally charged, we've learned. The Hennepin County Medical Examiner's autopsy in this case, in Mr. Floyd's case, found no evidence that he was suffocated or was strangled. In my view, given that finding, isn't it possible that officers may not even be held accountable for Mr. Floyd's death?
Well, as you and I know as former prosecutors, the cause of death is often one of the main sources of evidence to prove murder. And in this case, I don't think there's any question that he did not die of natural causes. He died while this police officer, who had been invested with a badge and a gun by the people, used the power he was given by the people to have his knee on a human being's neck, not only for the almost 9 minutes, but Sonny, also for 2 minutes and 38 seconds after George Floyd had been basically motionless. Right? 2 minutes and 38 seconds. That same week, we watched the SpaceX rocket blast and watched and talked about how the importance of those 2 minutes to see if that rocket could actually enter space. The significance of 2 minutes and something seconds, I think that George Floyd was 22 minutes and 53 seconds. That rocket was 2 minutes and 38 seconds. So listen, the circumstances and the evidence surrounding George Floyd's death, I think, without any question, support the charges against him. But it will not be easy to get a conviction because it is still the case that jurors are inclined to trust, because that's part of the social contract, to trust police officers. And and that has been part of the difficulty that so many prosecutors have had when they've brought these cases. But there's no denying that this officer and those who were his accomplices should pay a real consequence and accountability for what they've done.
So, Senator, as you just mentioned right before coming to chat with us, you and some of your Democratic colleagues in Congress unveiled a sweeping police reform bill. So,
right.
Can you tell us what you're calling for, and
Yeah.
if any of your Republican colleagues will support this? I mean, I'm thinking maybe Mitt Romney, who was marching with the protesters. Is he a possibility?
How about that? You got to give it to Mitt. I'm getting to know him in the Senate, and good for him, right? He understands this is a matter of justice, and any one of us denied justice means we are all denied justice. So I am hopeful. And Joy, what we have is a package of legislation that is about accountability for police. And let's all be clear, this is in the best interest of all Americans, not just Black Americans, not just people of color, of all Americans. So some of the things that we have in the bill include what we need to do to give the Department of Justice the teeth to investigate patterns and practice of discrimination by police departments. I did that when I was Attorney General of California. It's very important that where we suspect that there is a culture within a police department, that we investigated and that there be consequence, including reforms of those police departments. One of the other things that we have in our bill is we're saying that the national standard for use of force should be changed, specifically this way. Right now, when a police officer uses excessive force, the question in a courtroom is to ask, was that use of force reasonable? Well, as we all know, we can reason away just about anything. The real question, the fair question, should be to ask, was that use of force necessary? And so these are some of the things that we are changing about how we are doing accountability for law enforcement in America. And as I say everywhere, bad cops are bad for good cops. And we need to say that in one America with a system of justice that is written, the concept on the marble walls of the United States Supreme Court, we have as an ideal equal justice under law. We've not yet achieved that ideal, but I do believe this is a step toward that.